The nervous system, composed of neuron cells that consist of neuron transmitters, which are stored in the synaptic vesicles near the axon terminal. Dopamine transmitter is the most found in the neural cells, otherwise known as the learning behavior response. Organisms use these pleasure responses to give a baseline of overall responses through the levels of dopamine in the bloodstream. Increase in dopamine means an organism is learning, and it's receiving a positive feedback. For example, when a baby laughs, it creates a positive response, therefore releases dopamine in parents. When a baby cries, dopamine levels drop and causes the parents to react to get the baby to stop crying. Pleasure neurons consist of G-coupled proteins that interact with a ligand that helps create a positive response and cellular response. D1 is the most abundant dopamine receptor in the central nervous system. It regulates growth and development of neurons in the brain and has a role in behavioral responses. D1 also regulates the actions dopamine receptors in D2. D2, along with D1, reinforces effects of drug abuse. D3 receptor is involved in reinforcing effects of pleasurable activities and emotions. D4 receptor is involved in exploratory behavior and motor coordination. D5 receptor is involved with emotions and behavioral long-term memory and smell. D5 has a higher affinity for dopamine compared to D1. Dopamine is produced from amino acid tyrosine. It is a neurotransmitter that sends chemical signals from the dopamine containing neurons to target cells containing dopamine receptors. Dopamine is meant to control physical movement, memory, alertness, attention, emotions, and perception of pain/pleasure. First, the reward stimulus is recognized. Second, dopamine is released across the synapses. Third, specialized receptors receive and interpret the transmission. And finally, dopamine is removed from the synapses to be recycled and used again. The recycling is done by dopamine entering the membrane of the transporter and is carried back to the neurons in the vesicles. The VMAT2 is the pump that pulls the returning dopamine into the vesicles. The cycle repeats again once the signal is sent and the vesicles merge with the cell's membrane and dump themselves into the synapses. Naturally, our dopamine neuron will die off at a steady rate. Longer than 2. D1 and D5 increase intercellular levels of cAMP by activating adenylate cyclase, while D2 and D3 and D4 will decrease intercellular levels of cAMP by inhibiting adenylate cyclase. Dopamine's effect on the target neurons depend on what receptors are on the membrane of the neuron and the interresponses of neuron to the second messenger cAMP.